All right, good evening. So the first project I have to talk about today, we're calling the Facilities Capital Equipment Replacement Program. I call it a life cycle replacement program. Hopefully none of you have ever had a roof that started to leak and you weren't planning on repairing the roof and you got water damage inside, which can turn out to be very costly. So the concept of a program like this is to stay ahead of those types of problems so that we perform replacements, major capital replacements, before a failure. Imagine a generator on a building, let's say the police department. We have 2 generators out at the police department that run the police department and the 911 center when the power goes off. You all know how often the power goes off, especially around thunderstorms. We want to make sure those generators run and work so that the services keep going. One way of doing that is to make sure the generators don't get too old. You know, the older a piece of equipment is, the more likely it is to fail. So we have a life cycle program. This is just a little background on how many buildings that we take care of. 224 structures, over 2 million square feet, going back to 115 years. So we have a facilities life cycle replacement program, and it addresses major components of our facilities. I gave some examples here on the slide of the types of things that we have in this program. So with this program, we actually look at all this equipment. We project what the life expectancy is of it, program it in. We actually do this on a 10-year future-looking window so that we can predict when we need to replace things. Now, we don't just replace them because the age has come up, but as the age gets closer, we're paying more attention to them. We're looking at their maintenance history. Are they starting to cost us more money to maintain? If they're in good condition, when their age comes up, we may extend it another year or 2. But the idea is that, you know, we're looking at taking care of the services we provide by making sure we provide functional, reliable infrastructure, which, as I said once before, includes buildings. So we want to stay ahead of it. These projects can be expensive on an individual basis. You know, a generator can cost $100,000, $200,000 if it's a big one, for instance. Roofs tend to be very expensive. If you ever did a roof on a house, a big building's much more expensive. So we have to plan ahead for that and make sure we have money for it. So this is a program we have in place. It's been in place for many years. Currently, it's funded out of the general fund as a capital project. This is a chart that shows 10 years past and projections for 10 years future. The bars represent either what we asked for or what we project we'll need in the next 10 years. The dark blue line is how much funding we actually got. Being as it's funded from the general fund, it varies. You know, the way this government budgets capital projects out of the general fund, basically the capital funds get what's left over from operations. So we fund everything that's related to an annual operation first, government-wide, and whatever revenue's left over funds the capital program the following year. So back in the early years there, FY 10, 11, 12, you know, that's when we were seeing the effects of the recession. So revenues were down, more money was more percentage of that revenue went to the general fund, operating fund, so there was less to go to capital. So although the requests seem low there, it's also because we were aware of that challenge, that there really just wasn't a lot of money to go around. So we weren't asking for the sky. We were actually trying to stretch some of our equipment, some of our systems out with longer lives and crossing our fingers that the maintenance costs don't go through the roof or we don't have unexpected failures. But as we got back up into FY 14 to 15, budget outlook was looking a little more favorable. So we started trying to get caught up on all those projects that we had deferred. So we started asking for more money. You can see in the last couple of years, we've actually been getting more money. So we still predict a pretty good need in the years to come. FY 28 and 29, the last 2 may be a little misleading because it's looking so far out, 10 years. There are some things haven't appeared yet in there. And of course, as we build new buildings, new facilities, new great things for our community, it adds to this as time goes by. just to make a little point about the general fund, this is out of the Athens-Clarke County annual budget documents, and it shows where our general fund dollars come from. You'll see the first bar is property taxes. 46% of it comes from property taxes. The next two bars are other forms of taxes, sales taxes, other taxes. The sales taxes are fixed. We can't raise sales taxes. They're at the maximum allowed by state law. So when the mayor and commission needs more money, and all they can really do is adjust the property taxes for the millage rate. So if we have more needs, that's where the mayor and commission has to go. So the idea of this project is, one, to provide a stable source of funding for the project. You saw how much it goes up and down depending upon a lot of factors, but to also relieve pressure on the general fund. If we can, by shifting these costs from the general fund to sales taxes through the SPLOST program, it may help us avoid a property tax increase as we go forward. Mayor and commission, they go through that challenge every year. How do they fund, the current programs, existing needs? How they fund salaries, health insurance, all that stuff. It adds up very quickly, particularly the personnel costs, which typically run around 70% of the general fund's budget, paying for salaries, health benefits, retirement, and other employee benefits. When you look at, should this be funded out of sales tax? Should it be funded out of property tax? Property taxes come from property owners or their renters and tenants who are paying the landlord for it. A lot of property in Athens is not taxed. Sales taxes, on the other hand, are paid for by everybody who buys something here. So it's also not just people, residents, it's also being paid for by visitors, people who come and work in Athens, people come and play in Athens. So it spreads that out over a larger base of people. And all those people are benefiting from the services this government provides, not just property owners. So it's more of a philosophical question. Where do you want to put these costs? It is a program that exists. It is funded now. It's just that, we see future challenges to the general fund of how we're going to continue, how the mayor and commission may continue to be able to budget everything. So what this project was proposing was an annual funding over the life of the SPLOST program of $1 million. And when they take that out over projecting a 10-year program, whether it's 9 or 10, we're kind of going back and forth on that, but over a 10-year program, I said with overhead, I just didn't want, it's project management and program management costs. Just too many words to put on a slide, but that's what I mean by overhead. So over 10 years, we projected about $10.5 million. I know you're asked, this project is scalable. Since it already exists, it's in the general fund. Any money that goes to this project just takes that pressure off the general fund. So if we only had half that available, that's half the help to the general fund, but it still helps. So fairly simple, I hope. So with that, questions? Oh, I couldn't have been that good at explaining it.
So will you submit an alternate proposal with a reduced budget?
I would just say on this one, it's scalable, that if you can fit it in at any amount, it'll work.
Well, we can't come back to you and say, out of this 10.5, we'll give you 5.5, so. You could, just curious if you'll take the time to submit an alternate.
Well, I mean, I could do that. It's just, I try to be flexible. If in the end I said half of that and you feel you could fit 2 million instead of 10 million, I could write a real quick alternate that says that too.
Dave, you got an idea of what our average repair costs per year are? And that's.
Oh, you would ask.
I know you can't do everything that used to be repaired, so it's really kind of a loaded question. But
it is, and that, some work we do in-house, some we have to contract out. The in-house work includes materials. Our expenses for contracts and most of the equipment our purchases, replacement equipment and supplies, about roughly $1.5 million. Now, that doesn't include labor costs for the in-house labor. It's expensive to keep buildings running.
Oh, yeah. Well, you have a lot of buildings, several old ones.
Yeah, a couple, and some new ones.
I recall working in one of them that often had climate control problems, let's put it that way.
It still does. That's a design problem, not
Yeah,
a equipment operation problem.
One question, so if you're requesting, I think, maybe do you mind going back one slide?
That one?
So, like, if I look at your chart, you're requesting this year, like 1.8 million or something capital
mhm.
request. I think that makes sense.
Okay.
Other question?
Marilyn, I thought you said you were gonna be rough on me tonight.
I said they.
No.
Wait till the next one.
Okay,
Go ahead and move on to.
sure, Keith, please.